Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new bi-weekly video series where I'm focusing on my history with the beloved bear and bird, Banjo and Kazooie. A lot of people seem to like me losing my mind over their announcement in Smash, so I thought I'd do something new. I'm going to go into every Banjo-Kazooie game, and while I'm practically reviewing them, I'm also going to share what these games meant to me as a kid and how they had such a major factor in my life. The games talked about will be in the order of release dates, but that does not mean I played every game in that order. To answer that question right now, I played Diddy Kong Racing first, which is the first game Banjo ever appeared in. Then I saw snippets of Banjo-Kazooie as a kid, since I never owned the game back then. But I did get Banjo-Tooie. Following that, I was able to find a copy of the original Banjo-Kazooie to play on my own. After that, I discovered Nuts and Bolts, which is the one game I still don't have a copy of, but I don't know if I want it because I've seen enough from Friends gameplay and Angry JonTron screams to get the picture. Holy shit! Sometime after that, I discovered about the two Game Boy Advance games, Grunty's Revenge and Banjo Pilot, and gave those a shot. So, yeah, I wasn't exactly the hardest of core fans. Yo. But the impact of these games can never be underestimated. Now, to be honest, I was tempted to do a stereotypical history of Banjo-Kazooie. You know, share how Rare started, had their peak, and fell from grace, blah, blah. But that's not needed for a series like this. There are plenty of videos and articles that talk about gaming history like this far better than I will. So expect these videos to get right to the point. So, all that being said, let's talk some Banjo-Kazooie, and the only way to begin a series like this is to talk about a racing game starring a little monkey facing off against a magical pig from outer space. Diddy Kong Bloody Racing, how I adore you. Now that I think about it, this game came out of nowhere and didn't have any reason to exist. With Mario Kart 64 pulling a Super Mario 64 and showing the world how to handle a fun racing game, Rare decided to show their version with Diddy Kong Racing, but that's the thing. Why Diddy Kong? What about Donkey Kong, DK Crew, K. Rool? I mean, one of the racers is a Kremlin named Crunch, because of course that was a cool name to have in the 90s, but almost everything and everyone in this game just, again, come out of nowhere. Who are these characters? I know this one, and I especially know this one because of what happened afterwards, but this new cast of characters are just there. Maybe the story from the manual will give me some answers, but before I do, look at this artwork. Holy hell, I don't have the booklet anymore, so this was a nostalgic blast looking it back up. Anyway, let's go through this. Diddy Kong sat on the porch of his treehouse and curiously tore open the letter. Wait, what letter? Eager to find out what it contained, he tugged out the note impatiently and started to read. Dear Diddy, it began. Help! Now this sounds promising, he thought. Wow, Diddy, you're into some dark shit, aren't you? Things had been all too quiet since those old family friends, the Tigers, had arrived to spend their summer. Oh gee, I wonder if it's because the Kong home is on a freaking island in the middle of the nowhere sea. After Diddy Kong carefully read the note through a couple more times, the note just said help. He'd been asked to help, so his intention to zip off as soon as possible could not be in doubt. The question that preoccupied him now was whether or not he should draft some extra help, just in case, after all, this Wizzpig sounded like a pretty mean foe. Oh, so there was more to the note. I wouldn't mind so much if the game itself dove into this topic, but considering the fact that the story of this game is only explained in this passage just adds to the bizarre factor. Finally, he decided that his friends Banjo and Conker would still enjoy an adventure, even if it turned out that their services weren't needed. You're facing off against a magic evil pig and its name is not Ganondorf. Having Banjo and freaking Conker on your team for best crossover yet should definitely get the job done. Meanwhile, Timber was trying to calm the excitable Pipsy so that he could understand at least part of what she was saying. He said he wanted to find a champion to go after that horrible pig once and for all. Slow down, Pipsy, Timber urged, trying to make sense of her words without upsetting her. After all, this whole business had been harder on the little mouse than any of them. Wizzpig's unwanted intrusion left her family homeless. Oh my god, this is getting dark. Who are you talking about? Bumper asked curiously. Taj, the genie, Pipsy babbled. He said he helped. Really, Bumper, he did. I just saw him. Tip to blink. The genie? Nobody's seen him for 50 years, he protested. Timber frowned, thinking this through. That means he must have been kicked out of the mountain too, he reasoned. After all, we've seen what that pig's spells can do. Such as what? Spoiler alert, but in the game, Wizzpig doesn't use a single spell. His only magic power is flying. So yada yada yada, everyone bands together to help Taj the Elephant Genie get his home back, the end. So, okay, so the story really didn't explain much of anything. I remember reading this a lot back in the day, and I think I know why. This short story has so many gaps that a kid's imagination could go wild filling them in. And with art this intimidating, it would only help engage the kid even more. So bottom line, Magic Pig Jerk took over the island, made an elephant genie powerless, and the only way to reach Wizzpig is to win his races. Simple enough, whatever. Let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay itself. Now, many people say that this game is one of the best racing games of all time, and yeah, I could see why. The features in the game, while not many, offers so much variety. You have your story mode, which has 6 exclusive tracks, your free race mode, which includes 20 tracks, time trials, and even battle maps. 2 are battle royales, and the other 2 are collection based. The meat of this game is divided into 2 sections. For multiplayer, you can play the 20 race courses I mentioned before, and almost all of them offer you the chance to ride in a different vehicle. And yes, you heard me, different vehicles. There are 3 types of racing. You can race by car, hovercraft, and plane. Car is exactly what you expect. Planes are oddly relaxing for me and offer more freedom of movement on the track, so they're always fun. And the hovercraft, well, we don't talk about the hovercraft, at least until I reach a certain boss. The ability to race by these 3 vehicles offer a lot of replayability and can teach you about each level. For instance, if you race on the track Everfrost Peak by plane, you can still see where the speed boosts are if you drive by car, so you'll have an advantage the next time you play. The best part is that no race will play out exactly the same. While the track layout stays the same and the items themselves are in a locked position, it's what you can do with the 2 that determine how you race. Like I said, even though the items are always located in the same spots, you can power them up by driving into one of the same type. So if you get a red balloon, you'll get a simple rocket. If you drive into another red balloon, it'll turn into a homing missile. One more red balloon and you'll get 10 rockets at your disposal to help get and or stay in first place. The blue balloons are your speed items and green balloons are traps you can lay behind to mess people up. There are also magnet power-ups that will help pull you ahead of a racer, as well as force fields that can protect you from weapons and can spin opponents out. But these last 2 power-ups are more rare to find and don't really have a use for me. So how you want to play is up to you, but you also have to mix up your driving skills because one touch of another colored balloon will reset the power-up. So if you have a fully powered boost and you touch a red balloon, you start from the single rocket again. You have to know your track layout and decide how you want to take on your opponents while in the middle of a race. Do you want to lay traps to stay in first, or do you want to focus on speed boost? And if you do use only speed boost, are you going to use them with each balloon, or will you stack them for a turbo boost? Sometimes turbo might not be the best option because one day you might crash into the sky. This is what keeps Diddy Kong Racing at the top of racing games. It's so simple, but it's truly one of those games that requires a lot of playtime to truly master. Whereas Mario Kart relies heavily on luck-based items that are determined by what place you're in, Diddy Kong Racing relies on what you can do with the track you're given. It's one of the few kart racers that isn't super serious, but it does require skill, and it's so rewarding. And with friends, it can turn into a chaotic nightmare. But this is my show, where I play alone. All these empty seats are full of, I don't know, probably Pringles. How's the single player mode? Ah, now we're talking. From the second you choose the game's adventure mode, you get this dark, ominous intro that tells you everything you need to know about Wizzpig, followed by a sudden increase of joy and whimsy. After the intro, you are free to explore your hub world by car, Satan, or by plane. I always went with the plane just so I could go anywhere. Now as a kid, I probably spent hours flying around the island because you could find secret balloons that'll help you gain access to more levels. While there are only 4 in the hub world by themselves, that didn't stop little old me from exploring every inch. It also didn't help that I was encouraged to find secrets thanks to Taj himself. As the game progresses, you'll be challenged by Taj to races around the island. Now the car and plane tracks are just one big circle, but with the literal form of torture, you take a secret path through a waterfall as part of the race. That blew my mind as a kid and made me think that there were more secret paths on the island. Just a heads up, there isn't. Even though that exploration does help you find the fourth world, also located behind a waterfall. Speaking of which, once you're done practicing or running over frogs, it's time to make your way to the first world, Dino Domain. From here, you get to compete in 4 different races. You have to win each race to get a golden balloon and progress to the next one. Once you win all 4, you can race the boss of the world, but Diddy Kong Racing doesn't stop there. Remember when I mentioned that there were battle minigames? Well, to unlock them, you have to find a literal key to unlock the game. There's 1 key per world, and while the first key is easy to find, mainly to introduce you to the hidden key mechanic, the other 3 are much more secretive. We'll get to them later though. So I think the only way to do this game justice is to briefly sum up each level and work our way to the end. Almost each track is so unique and deserves some kind of commentary. So the first race is Ancient Lake. It's as simple as you think it is for a first race. Thankfully, everything you need to know about the game is shown on this track. How items work, how there are obstacles you face, how speed items are a little trickier to get, and how boost pads work. It's nice, it's easy, a solid first track. Next up is Fossil Canyon. This is as easy as Ancient Lake, except this time you're forced to master how to drift in the middle of the track. You also learn that some of the boost pads are in unusual places, so you have to keep your eyes open to get first place. Other than that, not much to say. I kind of avoid this one if I can, since the level is as barren as it can get. Next race, here's something more lively, Jungle Falls. This is one of the few tracks where you can see what paths are reserved for specific vehicles. This is a lot better than Fossil Canyon since there are more items and speed boosts to work with. The layout is pretty fun too. This is where I learned as a kid how to handle an increase in speed, since one wrong move would throw me into a wall or in the water. Last and especially not least, Hot Top Volcano. This is one of my favorite tracks in the whole game. The layout is nice and simple by the plane, there's a few forks in the road you can choose for the best item selection or speed boost, and Sweet Elephant in the Sky, the music. It's probably because we're racing through a literal volcano, but the music makes this track somehow fun and yet really epic. Just listen to this chant. I have no idea what they're saying, but this track is awesome. So you won your 4 races, got the minigame key, and unlocked the first boss. I'm just gonna call him Jimmy, the Horny Stomper. Like with Ancient Lake, Jimmy teaches you quickly how the boss battles work. You can hit them with rockets if you're behind, or keep your eye out on the track for boost balloons to help catch up or stay in first. And this is where you'll learn how stressful the game can be thanks to, again, the music. I swear I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack because the song makes it sound like the boss is right behind me. I have to go faster, but I can't because there's no boost, and I have to keep turning left, scaling the mountain. Oh, and here's a fun fact. The track gets more narrow as you reach the top of the mountain, so one mistake hitting a rubber tree might cost everything, and even if you win, you get to see Jimmy right behind you, making you realize, oh god, I won, but at what cost? 2 years of my lifespan out of fear? Worth it for the progression, I guess. Alright, so we beat Jimmy square and fair, and why do I feel like I'm forgetting something important and yet incredibly painful?
Well done, kid. Now try my new challenge. Collect all of my silver coins from around the Dino Domain.
Oh no! I forgot about the silver coin challenge. Okay, so after you beat the boss, you have to do all 4 tracks again. The trick this time, though, is that there are 8 silver coins scattered around the tracks, and some are purposely out of the way so that you might get past and not win. Not only that, but you have to find all 8 silver coins and win at the same time. So if neither one is done by the time the race is over, you automatically lose. The AI for the Silver Coin Challenge also gets better as you start to notice that they're suddenly competent at playing the game. Now in Dino Domain, the silver coins are not hard to get. This is still just an introduction to the concept, but in later levels, they can be the bane of your playtime. What I find weird about them is their hitbox. I swear, I miss driving into a coin and yet still get it, but the opposite can happen where I swear I touched the coin, but it doesn't add to my collection. These polar hitbox conundrums mess me up a lot, and it's not with just the coins. Sometimes speed boosts and balloons are just, they don't register. So to save up time, when I talk about future tracks, I'll also go over how hard their coin challenge is. Okay, so you win all the races again. What happens after that? Rematch against the boss. And this time, Jimmy isn't messing around. Why'd I say it so seriously like that? When you re-race a boss, you'll find that not only are they faster and there are more obstacles to dodge, but there are also fewer items to help you out. So if you're behind, you need to make items your top priority. Sometimes that can screw you over because they might be out of the best driving path, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Or you can restart the race. I did that, 60% of the time on boss tracks? If you win against Jimmy again, you unlock a piece of the Wizzpig amulet. Long story short, to get to the race against Wizzpig, you need to beat all 4 bosses. After that, surprise! There's 2 more things you can do. The first is the trophy race or Grand Prix, where you have to race through all the courses again, but the supposed payoff is that the AI will actually try to challenge you this time. And you need to get first place overall to unlock a bonus world at the end of adventure mode. The other thing is the battle minigame I mentioned a few times before. In Dino Domain, the game is called Fire Mountain, and no, it's not as epic as it sounds. In this game, you need to fly, pick up an egg in the middle of the arena, and place it in your nest. After a set amount of time, the egg will hatch, scoring you a point. The first one to reach 3 points win. The main gimmick of this game, though, is that until your egg hatches, it can be stolen by another racer and placed in their nest where the hatch timer resets itself. There's also the fact that sometimes your Z button won't register an egg, so instead of picking it up, you'll fly right over it, wasting time and pretty much giving a free point to your opponents. This game easily takes the longest to win, but it does keep you on your toes and makes you play defense and offense at the same time. It's a nice adrenaline rush at the end of the day. If you win the battle minigame, you'll also get a piece of a new amulet, the TT amulet to be exact. If you get all 4 pieces, you unlock the final race in the game. Alright, so finally, on to the next world.
Hi there, I'm TT.
Oh yes, how could I forget TT, whose initials I'm pretty sure stand for Trevor Tiger. It's ironic because I'm just as annoying as this clock. Really, TT stands for time trial, so this character is actually an unlockable racer. So with the name like Time Trials, would you like to guess how to unlock him? If you guessed racing through all the tracks again, you win! Or you might not because it's a time trial, but you're halfway there. Now thankfully, the time trial races were never too hard for me, both as a kid and an adult. With how many times you race on each track, you'll be a master by the time you race TT. And before you ask, yes, TT is worth it. He has the best stats in the whole game, excelling in speed, acceleration, and handling. And oh my god, I never went over the characters. This is where you get a variety of stats for each 2 racers. So if you played Mario Kart or Mickey Speedway USA, it's a good game, I promise. You'll know what I mean. Example, Diddy and Timber have the same average stats, so 3 out of 5 for speed, acceleration, and turning. Tip Top and Pipsy have very low speed but great acceleration and turning, which may not sound impressive, but they are an absolute godsend in adventure mode. I mean, look at this face. Isn't that the face of someone you can trust? So with my playthrough, I of course picked Banjo, who's fantastic in speed, but bad in acceleration and very in turning. Basically, one solid mistake might cost everything. I used to hate racing as Banjo as a kid because I never got used to his controls and I had Tip Top. But as an adult, I can proudly say that I finally learned how to master that bear.
Hey, phrasing!
In fact, it was quite thrilling since I was at the edge of my seat, especially for later and harder courses. Okay, so I think that's everything. Let's finally go on to World 2.
I challenge you to a race.
I already covered you, go away! World 2, Snowflake Mountain. Now, just about every track in this world is pretty easy. Everfrost Peak is the perfect example of this. I dare say it's as easy as Ancient Lake. You shouldn't have any trouble with this course since the layout is simple, there's a ton of opportunities to gain speed, and the AI doesn't really have a chance to keep up. The silver coin challenge for this is pretty easy too. Like with Fossil Canyon, I try to avoid this course since it seems too easy or laid back. Walrus Cove, on the other hand, is a different story. You get to drive through loops for the first time, there's plenty of sharp turns, and only those done correctly will net you some good items. This is also where the Silver Coin Challenge starts to fight back. It's still manageable on your first attempt, you'll just learn quickly that some of the coins are in obscure parts of the track, making you work for that first place. Snowball Valley, or as I like to call it, Valley in my balls that just happen to be made of snow. Now normally this is a pretty fun race, there's a big fork in the road from the start and it's full of speed boosts that'll send you flying all over the place. It's easy to hit a wall or obstacle, so stay on your toes. And speaking of hitting something, do I hate the silver coins and the minigame key in this track. The hitbox problem I mentioned before is in full swing. I had to do a few retries because even though I swore by the gods I touched a silver coin, the game didn't register it. And because some of these are located in obscure places like with Walrus Cove, it is very easy to lose the race automatically if you don't get a coin on the first try. And don't even get me started on the minigame key. Okay, so that didn't work out. The key in this racetrack is stuck in a wall opening at the start of the race. Now, getting there is no problem. Thankfully, you don't even lose speed getting the key. No, it's what happens afterwards. The key is in this closed-off square space, so once you find it, you'll waste a lot of time correcting yourself and getting back on the track. The only consolation from this is that once you get the minigame key, you don't need to win the race to keep it. If you quit afterwards, the key will still count being yours and unlock the game for you. But the fact that the game does not tell you this only encourages your stress and a need to go see a therapist. Finally, we have Frosty Village. This is exactly like Snowball Valley. Easy enough drive normally, and a disaster for the silver coins, at least for me. I'm not sure if it was because I played as Banjo, but this was one of the few courses where I had to restart a lot just to get the coins and stay within the top 4 positions. Most of the coins are on the very edge of the track, so you're not going to stay in the lead a lot, and thanks to the AI driving perfectly, they can have a mile-long advantage over you by the time you collect everything. My trick for dealing with this was going for a couple coins per lap, that way I can still focus on keeping first place. So now that that's done, it's time for the boss of this world, Blubby! So Blubby is pretty easy too and much needed after the coin challenge. So long as you boost at the start and have at least one rocket in case he passes you, you're set. I love his track though. It's just one giant hill down. It reminds me of the Ice Cap Zone in Sonic Adventure, only this course is more stylistic and refined. My only regret is that Blubby isn't that hard. If this was a constant back and forth, then that could make this downhill chase all the more excitable. Especially on the rematch, since there were only like 2 times you could get an item, if I remember right, and more trees to block your path. If you want something more exciting, I suggest the minigame for this world, Icicle Pyramid. This is that one balloon battle map from Mario Kart 64, but perfected. Whereas Mario Kart's map feels too open, this map lures you into a false sense of security, because if you enter your opponent's site, you are more than likely to take a hit. Once you get hit 4 times, you're out of the game, but if you're good enough, you can even chain a couple hits like I did with Diddy Kong, and I will treasure this gameplay forever. That's for Smash Bros. 4, Diddy Kong! In adventure mode, this isn't too hard. In multiplayer though, oh man, those were the chaotic days. And while I'm at it, let's just cover the other minigame of this type, Dark Water Beach. It's the same as Icicle Pyramid where it's a battle royale, but you're all stuck on one floor and you can camp to win. That's literally the only difference. Still fun though. Let's move on to World 3, Sherbert Island, or as I like to call it, Water World, the equal disappointment. This is easily my least favorite world in the game since it has 2 tracks that I absolutely do not care for. The main reason is because of the hovercraft, and I've stalled on talking about it for far too long. So whereas the controls for the car and plane are tight and never offer any problem in control, The hovercraft feels like it has a mind of its own. You will slide all over the place, and after every turn, you slow down. There's apparently a secret to doing this because the AI doesn't slow down when turning, but the controls are so floaty and you feel like your controller isn't reading your movement hard enough that it's practically impossible not to wish to go back to the car and plane. And guess what? The first 2 tracks can only be raced on by the hovercraft, so I'm just gonna knock out 2 tracks for the price of 1. Whale Bay and Pirate Lagoon are ultimately harmless, both normally and on the coin challenge. The silver coins aren't too bad because a lot of them are on the middle of the track. They're honestly quite easy during adventure mode, but thanks to the controls, it feels like you're doing something wrong and not reaching the finish line at a good time. These are 2 races I never picked during free race mode. They aren't fun for me in the slightest. The other 2 races though are a lot better because you're on familiar ground again. Crescent Island is practically the mascot track of the game since it's highlighted so heavily in the intro cutscene, and I really like this track. It's challenging, the track layout is creative since it mixes open and closed areas really well, the pirate ship is a welcome treat to challenge your drifting skills, and it has a satisfying shortcut that has saved me more than once. The minigame key for Sherbert Island is also on Crescent Island, and trust me, they get harder to find with each one, because with this key, you have to drive into the water, float slowly to this column here, and find the key in another square space. You will not be blamed if you decide to quit after getting the key, since it was impossible for me to win after getting it. Let's go to the final race, Treasure Caves. It's too easy, but it's still fun. This track, I think, is the smallest and easiest track in the game because if you know what you're doing, you can finish a lap in under 30 seconds. But it's still a lot of fun because you can practically chain boost pads together, letting you blast the course F-Zero style. This is the only normal race course that really does that, so I applaud its unique design, even though for something called Treasure Caves, there's only 1 cave, so I felt betrayed more than when I worked for Portal 2's cave. And now for the boss. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Pricktopus. This guy is the second hardest boss in the game for me. Now, I don't mean the first race against him, that's easy enough. But the rematch against him, good Jesus Christ almighty, doing a hoedown with Tom Hanks that yells, "There's a snake in my boot," because Lucifer is hiding inside the boot that has a portal beneath him leading to hell where Doomguy's waiting to bash his skull in. Pricktopus is torture embodiment. His main gimmick is that with his new speed, he will get ahead of you and lay bubble traps behind, which are, by the way, the strongest trap in the game. So if you hit one, you will lose precious seconds or even the whole race. On top of that, thanks to the controls of the hovercraft, every time you dodge a bubble, the slowdown from the turn just might make it worse that you dodge the bubble. They are located at the most opportune moments to turn or get an item, so it feels like you're racing in a hopeless situation. And with Banjo, even at his top speed, he doesn't compete. When I played this game on the N64, Pricktopus snuck behind me, and even though I was ahead of him, his silhouette created a bubble and trapped me inside said bubble. Why? Because screw me harder than a clunky bolt, that's why. I'd rather play all 3 of the Dark Souls games blindfolded, and every time I die I have to chug a beer, because at least that way my death would come a little quicker. And with Banjo's poor acceleration, 1 bubble trap meant that I practically lost. I was somehow extremely lucky on the last attempt where I had a double speed boost, and I went soaring above him, so Pricktopus never caught up with me, even though he should have, so it was like the AI from the first race switched places with this one, and I am not complaining in the slightest about that. All in all, this was an extremely frustrating boss. Maybe World 4 can brighten me up, Dragon Forest, and the first race is Windmill Plains, another plain level and a really good one at that. This track has a lot of optional routes to get some decent speed, but you have to be careful because one wrong move can ruin your momentum in a heartbeat. I think Dragon Forest has the best designed courses overall. The forest country aesthetic is a lot of fun to see and race through. Almost every level in the game has some visual appeal, but Dragon Forest keeps mesmerizing me with every race. The silver coins are a little tricky, but it's not too bad thanks to the freedom your plane offers. Next race, Greenwood Village. fuck this race. Now, on the normal setting, I love this race, don't get me wrong. It reminds me of the Verboten roller coaster in Busch Gardens where you blast through a town in the woods. The setting is great, the AI are actually tough on this one, so there's a nice sense of challenge. It's a great race to test your skill at this point in the game. But the silver coin challenge can rot in video game hell for all I care. This was Frosty Village times 30. The silver coins are on the edge of the track and some are placed so that it's guaranteed to lose first place. Even my strategy of getting a couple coins per lap didn't pan out because either A, the AI would catch up and pass me regardless, B, the hitbox problem returns, and C, when I played as Banjo, there's this one hill that makes me crawl to a halt only because of Banjo's bad acceleration, so it's asking for everyone to pass you. This was the track that I had to restart the most, and I counted every time. 50 fluppity 4. This was not hard for me as a kid, but that was because I had Tip Top to choose from. With Banjo and Crunch, well, if you choose them, you might have a bad time. Thankfully, it gets better from here because race number 3 is Boulder Canyon, a hovercraft level. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna play with my cat. Who's under my music blanket? It's you! Hello, my little princess, my little Cherokee, who's not really a Cherokee, but it's a cat. How's my adorable little Inca? Yeah, you're so adorable. Yes, you are. And guess what? You're adopted. Good play, Sesame Inca. We'll do it again tomorrow. Alright, for real, Boulder Canyon isn't that bad. It's honestly the best water race because it's so lively and interesting. You start in the canyon, work through a castle, and leave through its dungeons to loop back around. Along the way, you get plenty of chances to use speed items and blast around sharp corners and through straightaways to help compensate for any slower speed. Even the silver coins aren't that bad. Like with Whale Bay and Pirate Lagoon, they just kind of sit there in the open. What doesn't, though, is the minigame key. You see, there's this bell that you can drive into. Like with the silver coin, sometimes it doesn't register me hitting the bell, so good luck figuring that one out, science. But hitting the bell will cause the bridge to rise up. Now, if you are a rational human being, you think, oh cool, this little extra has rewarded me and is now going to block my opponents. You're half right, because to get the key, you need a level 2 or higher speed boost and to do a U-turn as soon as you hit the bell so that you can go up the drawbridge and get the key. I applaud the game for its secrecy, but I'm still stunned that Kid Me was able to get this. The final race is Haunted Woods, which is strange. It's the last normal race for most players and it's this course. Design-wise, I like it. The track layout feels like it's too random due to the number of twists and turns, but it's a short course as well. The most memorable part of the race are the ghostly Wizzpig faces you'll drive past. I'm assuming the developers were trying to build Wizzpig up since after this and the boss, you face off against the Mad Pig, but there isn't much here to offer. You can come close to chaining boost pads together, so at least the feeling of speed isn't lost. This is just a strange course to have as your gateway to the end. Even the silver coins are easy here. I can only think of one that might be tricky, but it's literally a quick detour that doesn't slow you down. But after the nightmare that was Greenwood Village, I'm not complaining. Though this is another course I try to avoid in free race mode. Now for the boss, Larry. So Larry is a mix of Pricktopus and Blubby. His main gimmick is that he shoots fireballs that stay in place. Think of Pricktopus, but he's in the air, so you have more time to dodge his fireballs so long as you're not tailgating him, because that's just asking to get hit in the face. Like with Blubby, once you pass Larry, he stops being a threat. But, just to pour salt in his wound, I'm just gonna win the race by not crossing the finish line. Oh, what's wrong, Larry? I thought you didn't want me to cross the finish line, you scaly freak! Speaking of an easy victory, the same can be said for the minigame, Smoky Castle. This is the other collectathon game. You have to drive around this castle, finding up to 2 bananas. You then have to drive up a ramp to your treasure chest and put the bananas in there without getting hit by any opponents. First one to deposit 10 bananas win. This one is, like I implied, pretty easy. There's just so many opportunities to get 2 bananas that you'll never have a sense of urgency or rush to finish the goal. A unique idea for a kart racing minigame, but this one would be better in multiplayer, no question about it. So you beat all 4 races and reincarnated after Frosty Village and Greenwood Village. Oh my god, villages are the root of all evil. It's finally time to face off against Wizzpig in this actually creepy moment. Well, that was fun. Who wants to play Kirby with me? So once you deep-throat Wizzpig's stone-hard face, I am so sorry, you enter his dark domain, a lair fit for an evil conqueror that has tortured these poor animals for far too long. What horrific course could this monster have? A nice summer drive through the countryside with a couple drops.
Okay.
Jokes aside, this is a pretty tricky course the first few times you attempt it. Like with Treasure Caves, you have to chain yourself with these boost pads, otherwise Wizzpig will fly over you and take first. In order to win, you need to hit every single boost pad. If you miss one or crash into anything, restart the race. And man, can the race itself be tense from the music, Wizzpig stomping behind you, and the storm doesn't help your vision too often, so you have to rely on memory and instinct to find the boost pad and keep ahead. Now this took its fair share of retries, but with each one you will get better. Just be sure to skip the cutscene so you're not caught off guard by the first millisecond of Wizzpig's entrance. But nothing, and I mean nothing, is going to top the last few seconds of this race you're looking at. I swear I never shouted so hard but felt so relieved at the same time. Get out of here, you waddling pig! How did anyone take you seriously with a run cycle like that, you Porky! Once you beat Wizzpig, he'll do the most 90s thing ever. He'll go, "Oh man," and leave in dramatic fashion. That's right, Scarlet. I am the father. Goodbye, my love. Congratulations! You beat 85% of the main story. You'll get a nice scene where everyone is partying and wait a minute! Where is Banjo? Everyone is here except for him. What, did he get stuck in the stone phase? Where is his award ceremony? I didn't get stuck in Pricktopuss's little fart pockets to be ignored! Regardless, we then get the revelation that Wizzpig is an alien and pretty good at hide and seek. But how can we stop him once and for all? Why, by turning this lighthouse into a rocket if you win every trophy race.
Of course!
This takes you to the final world in the game, Future Funland. This is easily my favorite world in the game since I love every single track, though it might be my undying love for Star Fox that helps with that. Each course takes you through some stereotype of space, moon caves, space stations, futuristic cities, and California in 20 years. How are there trees here? I'm just gonna sum up each race right here. These are all great courses, a fit-in challenge for the end of the game. The silver coin challenges are fair and each course is so different, I love them. Not once do I feel bored, and the new level design is a welcome addition, considering the fact that we spent most of the game on an island. There's no minigame here, and there's no cutscene that tells you to do the coin challenge. You know the routine by now, so you have to prove yourself one last time. My favorite track in this world and the entire game is Spaceport Alpha. Nice open area, some tight turns, and you get to do the Death Star run. You heard me right. The Death Star Trench is remade in Diddy Kong Bloody Racing, and that's why this game is a 10 out of 10. I do need to talk about the last race though. Star City. Star City is honestly the easiest final challenge I've done in a game for a long time. There's a lot of chances for speed. If you mess up, you can recover no problem. You get to enter the Epcot ball? And even the silver coins can be gotten in one lap and you don't need to sacrifice first place to get them. I wonder if the game is giving me an easy break to prepare for the final battle against Wizzpig. Not too sure, but let's get this done. So after all the races, and assuming you won the 4 minigames, you unlock the final race against Wizzpig. Let's end this on a strong note. I'm automatically taken through the boss door and my game crashed. Okay, well, let's restart it and try again. And it crashed again. Third time's the charm, right? Oh, shoot me with the grenade egg. I can't do the final race! So let me come clean on something. While I have everything unlocked on my physical copy of Diddy Kong Racing since that was many years ago, there wasn't a way for me to capture footage like that again on my TV. I just recently played the game again, but to provide most of the footage you saw so far, I had to emulate the game. That had its own problem too, since I wasn't able to get any audio for the hours I spent completing the game again. I call this the Trevor luck, I'm used to it. I could make it work though, and this footage is still cleaner than I could ever hope for. So when it comes to this final race, I'm not sure if this was a anti-ROM thing or just Trevor luck, but I can't play the Wizzpig race again for the life of me. Only thing I can do now is talk about the race while using other footage. So anyway, one awkward segue later, with Wizzpig round 2, there's no trap gimmick like with Prick-to-Puss or stain obstacles like Larry. The race isn't over if Jimmy or Blubby passes you, and there's no speed pads to help you out this time. This is pure skill on the track against Wizzpig himself, who doesn't use any items either and just flies on the perfect path. It took me a few retries, but this is still the fairest boss race because it feels like a race, not a struggle. It's like a boss battle from LEGO Racers or Crash Team Racing. It's just you and the boss, no bullshit in between. If you can beat Wizzpig here, you somehow make his rocket malfunction and he crashes into a moon and dies. Yep, these kids are now all murderers. Animal control should be here any minute now. Congratulations, you have beaten Adventure Mode. After this, you unlock Mirror Mode for Adventure Mode, and you can find Drumstick in the hub world. Simply run over him to unlock the fastest chicken in the game. That is something I thought I would never say. And that is Diddy Kong Bloody Racing. So despite its shortcomings and how repetitive the races can be with the coin challenge, trophy races, and time trials if you do them one after another, this is still a fantastic racing game. Almost every race has so much charm packed into them, and with skill being the main factor instead of random items, this is a great game that won't punish you whenever you play it. It's a nice title that I always enjoy putting in my N64. I played this a lot as a kid, so it was a welcome surprise that even as an adult, I never felt bored. If a game can stay fun even after 2 decades, you know you did something right. Even though Banjo didn't do much in this game, story-wise, it was a lot of fun finally mastering his controls, and this was the first game he was in, so this gave me a good excuse to talk about it. A lot of good memories and a nice layer of skill. That is Diddy Kong Racing in a nutshell. I've gone online enough about the game. Join me next time in my retrospective where we go over the big one, Banjo-Kazooie. And as always, legends, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you next time. Take care.